Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fitness Beast YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing part 2 of my fitness journey. So dealing specifically with type 1 diabetes and kind of like the trial and tribulations I went through with it, right? So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 11 years old. Now at the time, I was also very overweight. I've been overweight for most of my life, as I've mentioned in most of my other videos. And I remember when I was diagnosed with it, right? One of the first things out of my doctor's mouth were, she told me I needed to lose weight. And of course, at the time, I was 11, right? So, going through puberty, all that kind of crap. And so I didn't pay attention to what she said. I really didn't look into diabetes at all, really. I just kind of decided to live my life as such. And as time went on, I started gaining weight very, very quickly. Eventually, I did balloon up to 315 pounds. But the thing is that during that time, as I was gaining weight and whatnot, I was realizing that diabetes was actually really hard to deal with. It's type 1. I have to reiterate this a lot. It's type 1 diabetes, not type 2 diabetes, not, as I've mentioned before, herpes-related diabetes, but type 1 diabetes. So effectively, it's an autoimmune disease where my body killed off the beta cells in my pancreas that produce insulin to help me control my blood sugar and transport nutrients. And it's one of the fundamental hormones in the body that helps you, survive as a human being, right? Not only does insulin help control your blood sugar, but it also is pretty much in charge of making sure that your proteins, your carbohydrates, your fats get transported throughout your bodies to the right locations. So make sure carbohydrates get stored in your cells to fuel you and give you energy. Make sure protein gets transmitted from your blood to your muscles, and it makes sure fat gets transported to the right elements of your body. As I've mentioned before, insulin is responsible for any excess sugar that you intake, not eating fat specifically, but it transports any excess sugar from your blood to your cells, and all that excess sugar, as I've mentioned, the last 4 words I just mentioned, anything that's in excess gets turned into fat for long-term storage because your body really has nowhere else to put it. So as I was growing up with this, dealing with it was, complicated, because I not only had to deal with, growing up, but also dealing with the effects that diabetes had on me. And on top of making me just gain weight, because of insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, all this kind of stuff, and because I wasn't taking care of my blood sugar, I was gaining weight very quickly, right? And this is related to the fact that when your blood sugar isn't handled properly, right, your insulin won't effectively work. So it won't carry sugar to your cells, it won't carry protein to your muscles, and because incidences like this tend to spike your blood sugar more than anything else, it makes your body release cortisol. I've mentioned it before, you can check it out on any fitness page. Alan Roberts mentions it, Papa Swolio mentions it as well. There are a bunch of fitness people on YouTube and otherwise that mention the negative effects of cortisol, right? And that is the stress hormone. So it's the fight or flight response. It's your body's reaction to being in a panicked state. And when you're releasing a lot of cortisol, your body doesn't lose weight, it doesn't necessarily gain muscle mass, but what it does is that because there's still sugar running through your system, it does store it as fat on your body because it's the only thing it can do, because your body wants to preserve itself, and storing fat is your body's way of preserving itself, for lack of a better way of doing anything else. And also because it has nothing else that it can do with the sugar at the time, or when you're in those states of being. Because of that, as I said, I ballooned up quite a lot. And with all the adipose tissue I acquired, and mainly around my stomach, right? So I had really, really strong legs because I was used to carrying around all the weight all the time, but my stomach was growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more adipose tissue you have around your stomach, the more visceral fat you have on you, the more resistance you build up, and the less effective the insulin works in your body. So effectively, my blood sugar was high very, very often, which made me lethargic. I had no energy to do anything, and because of that, my cortisol levels were spiking, which it's a very dangerous cyclical pattern to get into. Anyway, not only had my pediatric endocrinologist told me that I needed to lose weight, but as I got older and I transitioned from seeing a child's doctor to an adult one, the first thing he said also is like, okay, wow, Dave, you're 300 pounds, give or take. I don't remember what I actually was when I first started seeing my adult endocrinologist, but the first words out of his mouth were, you need to lose weight. And no, that wasn't, that's not a slight against the doctor. The doctor wasn't being, profiling me based on my size or anything like that. That's just a fact. The fatter you are, the less insulin sensitivity you have, which means that spikes your cortisol levels and screws up your hormones overall in general. So that's what kind of led me to wanting to really pursue my fitness journey even more, right? Because I was thinking about it. I'm like, the way I'm living, I'm actively endangering my body. Yes, I had type 1 diabetes I couldn't do anything with. Yes, I have MS that, again, I can't do anything with. Both autoimmune diseases completely out of my control. But how I was living was killing me. And not just killing me in a sense that I could go to a doctor, they're like, oh yeah, your heart rate is good, your breathing is fine, yeah, everything's good. But doctors don't tell you what your hormonal levels are, how your hormones are acting in your body. And the thing is, hormones are one of the fundamental things that help your body function. So by having a spiked blood sugar, by having cortisol levels running through my level because of my diabetes and everything like that, I was effectively killing myself. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the thing is that I know 100% that my insulin sensitivity really directly related to my weight as well, because when I was fatter, especially around the midsection, I was taking between 80 to 120 units of insulin a day. Now that's a mix between my rapid and my neutral insulin. Neutral being more like the pancreatic insulin that you take, in the sense of it keeps your blood sugar stable for longer over the 24-hour period. And rapid insulin, because your long-acting insulin can't really engage with sugar you're eating, because that spikes your blood sugar because it's more of a consistent one, you need rapid insulin in order to deal with any food you eat, right? So I take one shot of insulin in the morning, that's my long acting, that lasts 24 hours. And then I take a couple times a day, whenever I have a meal, I calculate the insulin I need depending on the carbohydrates I eat and what my blood sugar is, obviously. And I take insulin to combat the direct spike of sugar I'm going to have from eating. When it comes to that, it's imperative to understand that this is me as a type 1 diabetic. And the way I look at being a diabetic is not that I'm at a deficit necessarily, even though technically I could be. What I look at it like I have direct control over my insulin dispersion through my body. So it's manual, sure, but as opposed to needing it, my pancreas doing it for me automatically, I can control exactly how my insulin gets dispersed throughout my body when it is, precisely for the amount of sugar that I'm eating, or carbohydrates in this case, you know? As I've grown older, as I've gotten more control over my diabetes, and as I've lost weight, the amount of insulin I've had to take has dropped dramatically. So my journey through fitness dealing with diabetes has not only taught me that weight is horrendous for diabetes, is horrendous for hormonal transportation and dispersion throughout the body, and is horrendous for controlling your insulin levels, but fitness and having me lose weight has had me cut my insulin intake in half. So as opposed to taking almost 80 units for my long-acting insulin, I take 25 units now. And as opposed to taking 1 unit of fast-acting insulin for every for every 45 to like 50 grams of carbohydrates, I take 1 unit for 30 to 45. So I'm taking a lot less insulin. My body's performing at a much more optimal state, and overall, I'm a lot healthier because of my fitness journey, of dealing with the obesity, and of taking control of my diabetes. Anyway, I want to make this video short, so I'm going to cut it there. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, comment, everything, and I'll see you next week.